Today, I want to share a pour-over technique that'll completely change how you think about your morning coffee. While most methods obsess over precise timings and measurements, this one lets you actually enjoy the brewing process and still get incredible results every single cup. I call it the Zen method because it's the opposite of those stressful recipes that make you feel like you're failing a chemistry exam. This is about slowing down, focusing on the coffee itself, and ending up with something that actually tastes better than most of these $8 cafe pour-overs that you get out there. I rediscovered this technique watching baristas across Asia, where this style is used in a lot of cafes. It's actually a forgotten technique in the West that used to be quite popular, but now I think it's really ready for a comeback, especially because we're seeing all these funky fermented coffees, and this method handles those wild experimental processes really well. It pulls out clean flavors without the harshness that you sometimes get with more aggressive techniques. There's a reason a lot of professionals rely on this, and that is that it's forgiving, it works, and it doesn't require perfect execution to get a solid cup. And the best thing about it, it also works if you're half asleep at 6 a.m. and don't want to think about advanced blooming ratios or extraction percentages. So let me show you how it works. I'm using a Hario V60, but any similar cone-shaped dripper with a pretty fast flow rate, so something like the Cafe Flower, the Origami dripper, or even the new Hario Alpha dripper will work really well. You will also need paper filters, and I'm using these Cafe T90, and you can also use Abaca filters from the same brand, because I find that these two types tend to give you the fastest and most reliable flow rates. Today I'm using a natural processed Pacamara from the Swedish roasted Gringo from Gothenburg, and this coffee is supposed to have flavor notes of plum, orange jam, and caramel. And this technique works with most beans except these ultra-light washed coffees, but light naturals, anaerobics, honeys, etc. And of course the whole spectrum from medium light and all the way to dark roast are all great. Water is of course quite important, and I would recommend a TDS between 40 to 80 ppm. If you're unsure about water quality, I do have a course that really simplifies all this complicated chemistry and just teaches you how to dial in water for each brewing method and different roasters. So link down in the description if you want to check it out. Now the grind size is medium coarse, about the consistency of kosher salt or cane sugar crystals. If we talk microns, the median particle size is around 800 microns. Today I'm using 15 grams of coffee at a 1:16 ratio, which means my target is 240 grams of water. So I'm using water that's heated to around 91 degrees Celsius, and that's around 195 degrees Fahrenheit. So before we start brewing, just give your filter a little quick rinse. And now load in the coffee, pair the scale, and just even out the bed. And now start the timer and just do a quick little bloom. And here you don't have to look at the weight, just make sure all the grounds are saturated. Okay, and that looks about right. And now I'm just going to let this sit for 30 seconds. And then I start my pouring. I'm just pouring in small circles, starting at the middle and then going out to the edge. And the goal is for the water to get up to around 1.5 centimeters over the brew bed. And then the moment I see that almost all the water has drained, then I start filling up again. And when I see the first few coffee grounds in the middle of the brew bed coming through, then I just add a bit more water. And basically I just keep going like this until you reach your target weight, which for this brew is 240 grams. This might seem a bit unscientific, but if you think about it, it's actually working exactly how a drip machine would work, like a mocha master. The key here is to pour close to the surface and watch the slurry carefully. This really helps to control agitation, and it also makes bypass more repeatable. Depending on how big your brew is, you'll usually end up doing 6 to 7 small pours, which gives enough agitation for a decent extraction, but still very far away from over-extracting. Just really gentle, soft mouthfeel. The flavors coming through with a lot of clarity, and just a really nice brew. So the key to this technique is really pouring close to the surface and just watching the slurry carefully. And this really helps to control the agitation, and it also makes bypass more repeatable. Depending on how big your brew is, you'll usually end up doing around 6 to 7 small pours, which gives enough agitation for decent extraction, but still quite far away from over extracting. If we're talking traditional extraction theory, you'll probably sit around 18% with this approach. So this way you just get these soft, bright flavors. You're pulling the best out of the coffee and not any bitter compounds or vinegar notes. So potentially you're sacrificing a little bit of extraction, but in exchange you get that consistency and you get a really soft and bright cup. And if you're brewing coffee with a lot of funkiness, perhaps like naturals or anaerobics, then you probably want to target a 1:16 or 1:17 ratio. But if you're brewing a more like a classic mild coffee, like a washed one, that has more typical flavor notes of nuts and chocolate, then you can even go down to a 1:15 ratio, and then you'll get some extra brightness, a little bit more like a citric stone fruit acidity. Usually I'll brew somewhere around 12 to 20 grams with this technique, but it scales really well in a conical brewer, because when you have that bigger dose, then you'll automatically also have a larger surface area. So just by always pouring in the same way, you'll adjust the recipe without even thinking about it. So that's another reason why this technique works so well. And you should be looking at brewing time around 2 minutes to 3 minutes and 30, depending on your batch size. So if anything seems way too fast or way too slow, then just adjust the grind size to compensate. So there you have it. This is the foundation of this technique, but you can really tweak it in a lot of different ways. And if you want to refine it even further, then you need to learn about a concept I call agitation profiling. And I've actually made a video about that. So I'll just leave that right here, and then you can just click it and save it for later. And then I'll see you over in that video.